Right now, somewhere in the world, a construction worker is cutting through drywall with an oscillating multi-tool. A mechanic is drilling through steel with a power drill. A plumber is sanding a tight corner that no other tool can reach. None of them are thinking about who made that possible. But here's the truth that almost no one in the tool world talks about. Every one of those tools traces its DNA back to a single workshop in Stuttgart, Germany, in the year 1895, a tiny company called Fein. Fein didn't just make a great power tool, they invented the concept of the power tool. Full stop. And if that weren't enough, 72 years later, they went and invented the oscillating multi-tool too, arguably the most versatile hand tool ever created. Two of the most important inventions in the history of construction and manufacturing, both from the same company, both built in Germany, both largely uncredited by history. Today, the brands that dominate your local hardware store, DeWalt, Milwaukee, Bosch, built their empires on a foundation that Fein laid. They just had better marketing. So how does a company invent an entire industry? That workshop belongs to two brothers, Wilhelm Emil Fein and Karl Fein. Wilhelm is 25 years old. He is not a businessman by instinct. He is an engineer, specifically an electrical engineer, at a time when electricity itself is barely understood by most of the world. Edison's light bulb is still 12 years away. The telephone hasn't been invented. Within 10 years, this tiny Stuttgart workshop would be building the phone network for one of the most famous cities in the world. By 1873, Fein is producing its first commercial product line: galvanic batteries, induction coils, and medical electrical devices, the kind used in early electrotherapy treatments. It is niche, it is technical, and it requires the deepest engineering precision to get right. Fein is already developing its identity, not the cheapest option, not the flashiest brand, but the most precise, the most reliable, the most built to last. That identity will follow them for the next 159 years. But before Fein became the company that invented the power drill, it would first become something very different, a company that wired cities. In 1875, Wilhelm Fein invents the first electric fire alarm. It isn't just a prototype. Within 4 years, the city of Stuttgart installs a comprehensive Fein fire alarm network across the entire city. 9 Morse telegraph stations, 50 alarm posts, multiple telephones wired together into a single emergency system. It spreads. Nuremberg, Frankfurt, Karlsruhe. City after German city installs fine fire alarm infrastructure through the 1880s and early 1890s. And then something remarkable happens. In 1877, just months after Alexander Graham Bell introduces the telephone to the world, Fein launches its own telephone using a horseshoe magnet design. It becomes the new standard. Wilhelm files a patent for an improved version 2 years later. By 1882, Fein is no longer just a German operation. They win the contract to build the public telephone network for the entire city of Barcelona, Spain. They finish it by 1885. In 1892, it is Fein technology that enables the world's first telegraphic opera broadcast, transmitting a live performance from the Stuttgart Opera all the way to the Royal Villa Berg. This is the age of Wilhelm Fein, and he is at the center of it. But even as he was wiring the world for sound, Wilhelm was thinking about something entirely different. Something that would change the nature of physical labor itself. The moment that changed everything wasn't planned. It started with 2 mechanics who were tired of drilling by hand. The year is 1885. Inside the Fein workshop in Stuttgart, 2 mechanics are faced with a tedious, physically exhausting job, drilling a large number of holes through metal by hand, using nothing but muscle and a traditional drill brace. Small electric motors have recently begun arriving in Germany, imported from England. They are primitive by modern standards, heavy, inefficient, and temperamental. But they spin. And to these 2 mechanics, that spinning represents an idea. What if the motor spun the drill? The prototype they build is rough, but it works. They attach a small electric motor to the shaft of a hand drill, power it, and suddenly the drill is spinning on its own. The work that would have taken hours takes minutes. Wilhelm Fein sees the prototype, and according to company historians, he immediately recognizes it as an opportunity to open up new ground in the field of electrotechnology. He doesn't dismiss it. He doesn't file it away. He pours resources into perfecting it. For the next decade, Fein engineers refine the concept. The motor gets smaller, the mechanism gets smoother, the whole unit gets lighter. And then in 1895, Fein and designer Otto von Kellenbach produced the world's first commercial electric hand drill. It weighs 16.5 pounds. It can drill through steel 0.1 inches thick. By today's standards, it is enormous and crude. But in 1895, it is a miracle. The power tool has been born. Here's what almost no one talks about. The same company that invented the telephone upgrade, built Barcelona's phone network, and wired German cities for fire alarms, just invented the power drill. One company, all of it. Fein recognizes what they have. In 1908, just 13 years after the drill's invention, they make a bold, radical decision. They abandon telecommunications entirely and formally transform the company into a specialized factory for power tools. It is a massive strategic bet. Telecom was their biggest business. It made them famous across Europe, and they walked away from it because they believed the power tool was the future. They were right. Fein spent the next decades building on that foundation, but the industry they started was already attracting competitors, and the world was about to get a lot more complicated. The first 2 decades of the 20th century are productive ones for Fein. With the drill established, they focus on expanding the category they created. In 1914, they file a patent for the first drill with an electro-pneumatic hammer mechanism, the direct ancestor of today's rotary hammer. Hammer drills, the ones that make construction possible. Fein built the first one. In 1918, inspired by American designs, Fein introduces the pistol grip drill, the shape that every power drill in the world uses today, the ergonomic form we now take for granted. Fein put it there. 1927 brings 2 more firsts. The first tin snips, electric metal cutting shears, and the first jigsaw. 2 more tools that will go on to define entire product categories created by the same Stuttgart workshop. By the 1930s, Fein is exporting internationally. Their tools are in factories across Europe. Their reputation among professional tradespeople is unmatched. Then come the wars. How does a precision engineering company survive 2 world wars and come out stronger each time? World War I disrupts supply chains and labor across all of Germany. Fein, like every German manufacturer, feels the strain. But the company's deep specialization in industrial precision tools keeps them relevant. Armies need engineering as much as combat. World War II brings even more severe disruption. Stuttgart is bombed. Factories are damaged. The German industrial machine is ultimately destroyed. And when the war ends in 1945, Fein has to rebuild from rubble, literally and figuratively. What happens next is one of the most remarkable chapters in German industrial history, the Wirtschaftswunder, the economic miracle. In the 1950s and 60s, West Germany rebuilds itself at a pace that stuns the world. Destroyed cities become modern manufacturing centers, and companies like Fein, with deep engineering expertise and precision manufacturing DNA, are perfectly positioned to lead that recovery. Fein expands. They open new facilities. The iconic Feinswerk, the Fein Dwarf, a compact, lightweight drill for smaller jobs, becomes their best-known consumer product. It sells broadly and gives Fein its first real mainstream identity among ordinary buyers. By the mid-1960s, Fein has international distribution networks across Europe and is pushing into North America. Revenue is growing. The brand is respected. Premium-priced, precision-focused, made in Germany, Fein is everything that the best German engineering stands for. And then, in 1967, exactly 100 years after the company's founding, Fein makes an invention so unexpected, so strange, that no one in the tool industry could have predicted what it would eventually become. The most versatile power tool ever invented was designed to cut plaster off broken bones, and it almost never made it out of hospitals. The year is 1967, Fein's centennial, a milestone year for a storied company. A Fein engineer is working on a problem that has nothing to do with construction, nothing to do with metal fabrication, nothing to do with the trades. The problem is medical. Doctors setting bones encase them in heavy plaster casts. Eventually, the cast needs to come off. The challenge? How do you cut through hard plaster without cutting the patient's skin underneath? Traditional saws oscillate in a full rotation. They would shred skin as easily as plaster. What's needed is a blade that vibrates, that moves back and forth at high frequency in a tiny arc, enough to cut rigid material but safe against soft tissue. Fein builds it, a circular saw blade attached to a motor that drives it through a crescent-shaped oscillating pattern. It cuts the plaster. It does not cut the skin. It works. They call it the plaster cast saw. And it is sold primarily to hospitals and medical facilities. Nobody in the construction world is paying attention, but Fein is always paying attention. In 1985, an automotive engineer approaches Fein with a different problem. Car windshields are bonded in place with silicone sealant. Removing them, to replace a cracked windshield or for repairs, requires cutting through that silicone without scratching the car body or cracking the new glass. Traditional tools can't do it without damage. Fein adapts the oscillating mechanism for automotive use. It works perfectly. Windshield removal time drops, damage rates plummet. Within a few years, the oscillating tool is standard equipment in auto body shops across Europe. In 1986, Fein takes the oscillating platform one step further and attaches a triangular delta pad to it, creating what they call the Fein grinder, a precision sanding tool for tight corners, contoured surfaces, detailed woodwork, the places no other sander can reach. This is the tool that will eventually become the multi-master. But Fein hasn't fully seen what they have yet. For the next 2 decades, Fein owns a technology that no one else on Earth can legally copy, and they keep it mostly a secret. Through the late 1980s and 1990s, Fein's oscillating tool quietly gains a cult following among professional tradespeople. Remodelers, finish carpenters, plumbers working in tight bathroom spaces. They discover what the tool can do: cut, sand, grind, scrape, plunge cut, and they become obsessed. But Fein never markets it broadly. The tool is expensive. The accessories, the blades, the pads are priced at levels that make even professionals wince. $20 for a single saw blade, the Multimaster itself selling for over $200. And Fein doesn't push back against that pricing. They never compromise on quality to chase mass market price points. It's a premium tool for premium professionals, full stop. In 2007, Fein finally launches the Multimaster officially to the wider trades market, with the quick and tool clamping system making accessory changes faster and easier. For the first time, the tool is positioned not just as a specialist instrument, but as a job site essential. Remodelers love it. Contractors swear by it. It becomes the tool that professionals recommend to anyone who will listen. But here's what very few people outside the industry know. Fein holds the patent on the oscillating mechanism, a patent that is about to expire. And when it does, the entire tool industry will change overnight, and Fein will face the biggest challenge in its 140-year history. October 2008, Fein's patent expires. Within 12 months, every major tool brand on Earth announces an oscillating multi-tool. What happened next was either a disaster or a vindication, depending on who you ask. When Fein's oscillating patent officially lapses, the response from the industry is immediate and overwhelming. Bosch, Milwaukee, Porter Cable, Dremel, Rigid, Makita, Rockwell, DeWalt, Craftsman. Within 18 months, virtually every power tool brand in the world releases their own version of the oscillating multi-tool. The prices drop. A tool that sold for $200+ as a Fein exclusive is now available for $50 from a dozen competitors. Budget brands from China flood the market at $20. The oscillating multi-tool goes from professional, specialist tool to mass market commodity, available in every hardware store, every big box retailer, every online marketplace on the planet. For many tool companies in Fein's position, this would be the beginning of the end. Fein refuses to see it that way. Instead of chasing the race to the bottom, Fein doubles down on what they have always been: the best oscillating tool that exists. Period. Full stop. No compromise. They invest in research. They improve the mechanism. They develop better vibration damping, a fine anti-vibration system that decouples the housing through flexible elements, reducing vibration levels below 5 meters per second squared. A level at which continuous professional use is safe without additional protective measures. No other brand on the market can match it. They continue innovating on accessories. The E-Cut blade system, specialized blades for every conceivable application, sanding systems, scraping tools, grout removal pads. Fein builds an ecosystem around the oscillating tool that competitors cannot replicate overnight. And then, in 2016, they do something counterintuitive. They partner with their biggest competitor. Fein and Bosch co-develop the Starlock system, a new 3D blade, mounting standard with a gauge bottle cap attachment mechanism that locks accessories into the tool holder instead of simply clamping onto it. The result is a 100% motor power transfer to the accessory, no slippage, no lost energy. Starlock becomes an industry standard. And because Fein helped design it, their ecosystem of accessories is immediately compatible, while giving them a quality advantage over brands that have to play catch-up to the new standard. Fein's response to being copied by every major brand in the world: partner with the biggest one to set the new standard, then out-engineer everyone else. But the story doesn't end there, because the bigger question, the one that haunts Fein even today, is not whether they survived the patent expiry. It's why, after all of this, most people still don't know who they are. C&E Fein GmbH 2026, 159 years old. Still family-owned, still headquartered in Germany, still making tools that cost more than the competition and last longer than almost anything else on the market. The numbers are modest by the standards of the giants they created. Approximately 900 employees globally, 16 plus subsidiaries, offices in over 50 countries, more than 700 active industrial property rights, including around 500 patents and patent applications. Over 90% of products manufactured in-house to German precision standards. Meanwhile, the global power tool market they invented is worth somewhere north of $40 billion annually. DeWalt, a brand born 30 years after Fein invented the power drill, generates billions in revenue every year. Milwaukee, Makita, Bosch. The companies that built empires on foundations Fein laid are now household names in every country on earth. And Fein? Fein is respected among professionals, revered among those who know tools deeply, and almost completely invisible to everyone else. There's a reason Fein never became a household name. And it has nothing to do with quality. It has everything to do with a choice they made and kept making for over a century. Fein has never chased mass market recognition. Every time the market pressured them to reduce prices, to compromise on materials, to chase the consumer rather than the professional, they refused. It is simultaneously their greatest strength and their most persistent limitation. The tradespeople who know Fein, the master electricians, the automotive technicians, the precision metalworkers, the high-end remodelers, they don't just prefer Fein, they are loyal to it in ways that border on evangelical. When a professional holds a Fein tool, they feel the difference in weight, in balance, in vibration dampening, in the way the motor responds. It is not marketing, it is engineering, and it is real. But the homeowner walking into a Home Depot has never heard of them. The DIY enthusiast on YouTube buys the Milwaukee or the DeWalt because those brands own the algorithm, the sponsored reviews, the shelf space at eye level. Fein sits quietly at the top of the professional tier, largely unbothered. They're not losing. They're simply not winning the game that most people think matters. And maybe that's exactly the way they want it. Why Fein succeeded? Fein succeeded because Wilhelm Emil Fein understood something fundamental. The world doesn't need another product. It needs the right solution. And when you engineer the right solution with obsessive precision, a market builds itself around you, whether you market it aggressively or not. They invented the power drill because two of their mechanics were tired of drilling by hand. They invented the oscillating tool because a doctor needed to cut plaster without cutting skin. Both inventions started from a problem, not from a product roadmap, not from a marketing brief, from a real human need that nobody else was solving. That philosophy, solve a real problem with an engineered solution, then build it to last, is what has kept a German tool company alive through 2 world wars, the Great Depression, the globalization of manufacturing, and the commoditization of an entire product category they invented. What Fein got wrong, but Fein's story is also a cautionary tale about the limits of engineering-first thinking. The oscillating multi-tool patent was one of the most valuable intellectual property assets in the power tool industry. Fein held it exclusively for decades, and when it expired, they were not prepared for the scale of what happened next. Within 2 years, the market they had nurtured as a premium niche was flooded with $20 imitations. Fein survived, and the argument can be made they even thrived, but they seeded the mass market permanently. A more aggressive company might have used the patent era to build brand recognition at scale. Fein used it to build better tools. Both choices are defensible. Only one of them made you famous. What creators and entrepreneurs can learn? First, inventing something doesn't mean you'll be remembered for it. The world rewards those who market what they create as much as those who create it. Fein taught the world to drill, to oscillate, to sand in tight corners, and then let others tell that story. Second, niche mastery is a genuine business model. Fein has never been the biggest, but in its chosen lanes, metalworking, precision oscillating tools, professional grade quality, it is still, 159 years later, considered the benchmark. There is a sustainable business in being the absolute best for the people who need the absolute best. Third, longevity comes from values, not just products. Fein's core value, build tools that last for professionals who depend on them, has never changed. Every product decision, every pricing decision, every partnership decision has been filtered through that value. And it has kept a family business alive through 2 world wars and the entire history of modern industrialization. In the end, Fein didn't need the credit. The construction worker cutting drywall, the mechanic drilling steel, the plumber sanding a pipe joint in a space no other tool can reach, they feel Fein's legacy in every single tool they pick up, even if they've never heard the name. That's not a tragedy, that's a legacy.